The Springboks have plunged to new depths after a 2018 defeat to Italy this weekend, while Mintgate continues to plague the Proteas on their tour of Australia. To discuss these headlines and more, I'm joined in studio by Sport24 editor Garen Lamney and chief writer Rob Howing. Gentlemen, good morning. Good to have you back in the studio.
Morning, Nick.
Garen, I'm going to start with you. We thought as South Africans that losing to Japan was a rock bottom, and then some of the results in the Rugby Championship this year was a new rock bottom. But now the Boks have lost to Italy. Did you think this day would ever come?
No, I didn't, Nick, to be quite honest. Looking back at that defeat to Japan, those were actually the glory days, as it seems now. It's been an awful year for South African rugby. It just coincides, obviously, with the appointment of Alistair Coetzee as coach. Played 11, lost 7. On track for the worst year ever. Got one more match against Wales next weekend in Cardiff. But looking at that Italy game, I think we were talking about picking a B side, giving everyone else a chance, like New Zealand had done the weekend before and then beaten them 68-10. I'm not sure if it would have now in hindsight been a good idea had that B team lost to them. At least we could have pointed out that it was a B team. But we picked a fairly strong side, almost as strong as we could have, barring a couple of injuries. But they were just totally outthought, outwitted, outplayed. When you look at the Italian coaching staff of Conor O'Shea, who's obviously new, they've just roped in Brendan Fenter. I saw Mike Catt there as well. They've got this sort of all-star coaching staff from all over the world. When you look at Italy, as I said, they just lost to the New Zealand B team by 58 points the week before. They'd lost every single Six Nations game, new coach in place, yet they were too good for a Springbok team that have been now together for 11 tests. So many problems. It's very difficult to even work out where to start. Obviously, everyone now calling for Alistair Coetzee to go. I don't see him obviously going before the Wales game, but there's serious question marks over his future at the helm after the Wales game. We've got 7 months off until we play again in June next year. So, it might be the perfect time to actually get rid of him. Obviously it's going to cost Saru a lot of money. He's got a contract until 2019, so they're going to have to pay him out there. So, that's obviously to be factored in as well. But next year on paper already looks like a tougher year than this year when you've got France coming out to South Africa for 3 tests. That French team is a pretty strong team. This year we had Ireland, who didn't send their strongest team out, and yet we scrambled to win the series 2-1. So it's going to get no easier, and I don't really see what changes between now and next June, apart from a Super Rugby tournament where anything can really happen. This year we didn't really reward Super Rugby form and pick the Lions players en masse. So I'm not sure why things should change. The players, a lot of them I think probably should have retired after the Rugby World Cup, a lot like New Zealand did when you had no Carter, McCaw, Smith, Nonu. They all sort of en masse left. Yeah, we've got players sort of sticking around. We're not too sure what Dwayne Vermeulen is doing. We're not too sure about Brian Abana, JP Peterson. I think it would have been easier just to, that's it, guys. Thanks for the memories. It's we're building for the next 4 years. But Alice Coetzee has sort of drawn on these players at times. JP Peterson has disappeared and taken a bit of a break and then played overseas, and he's been called back for one game, then he's gone again. Dwayne Vermeulen talked about doing his legacy no good, and then his wife was having a child. We're not too sure if Bismarck's going to form part of the future when he's fit. Yanni du Plessis was called back and then he pulled out. It just seems a complete mess and bad communication on all fronts. So it's very, very tricky to sort of foresee what's going to happen in the future. I do feel for Alistair Coetzee a little bit. Obviously, he inherited a lot of his coaching staff that he didn't choose apart from Matthew Proudfoot. They seem to have been no help at all. Franco Smith might have won the Currie Cup, but he's pretty awful at Super Rugby level. So I don't really know what he was going to do at the highest level. The couple of Lions defence coaches called in, but they conceded next to the most tries in Super Rugby. So it just seems like bad appointments across the board. I've got this funny feeling that Alistair Coetzee's ceiling as a coach is Super Rugby form. Super Rugby level. He's good at that level, but not good at the highest level. It's one thing to coach the Stormers, but when you have to pull in the best from the Lions and the Sharks and the Cheetahs, then it just becomes a bit of a mismatch and everybody's fighting for positions, and he doesn't want to show any favoritism towards the Stormers, and he just ends up with a weaker team than he had at the Stormers, if you like. Whereas the New Zealand coaches and Australian coaches, they're used to sort of coaching at that highest level, and they know who they're looking for. So Alistair Coetzee might have been the best candidate at the time. I just don't think he was the best out of a great bunch to choose from. So I think that's coming back to haunt the Springboks, and sorry, obviously, with their email that they sent 30 minutes after the final whistle, that we acknowledge that there are problems and we're going to attend to them after the Wales game. So without saying as much as Alice Garcia is going, I sort of think that's what they've opened themselves up to. They've sort of given themselves that out to get rid of him.